Rain whispered against the cracked window pane as Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The clock glowed faintly on his bedside table, 2:11 a.m. That was when it always began. At first, he thought it was the pipes. The building was old, its bones groaning with every gust of wind. But this sound was different. 3 faint knocks. The pause. Then 2 more. Like a rhythm someone was trying to remember. He tried to ignore it, rolling over, pulling the blanket tighter. But then came the whisper, so soft it might have been his imagination. A low, dragging sound behind the plaster. It moved from one corner of the wall to another, like fingertips searching for a way out. Ethan sat up. The glow from the streetlight painted the wall in dull orange. For a moment, everything was still. His breath caught. It was right behind his bed this time. He swung his legs off the mattress, feet pressing into the cold wooden floor. The sound stopped. Silence filled the room so thick it rang in his ears. Ethan waited, half expecting laughter, half expecting nothing at all. But something inside him, that quiet, uneasy curiosity that had followed him all his life, whispered back. He lifted his hand and knocked twice on the wall. 1, 2. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, like the world itself took a breath, 3 knocks answered. 1, 2, 3. Ethan froze. His heart thudded so loud he thought it might drown out the next sound. But then came the whisper again, clearer this time. A breath pressed through wood and plaster. He couldn't make out words, only tone, pleading, familiar, almost human. He stepped closer, pressing his ear against the wall. The paint was cold against his skin. From the other side, he thought he heard breathing. Slow, patient, like someone waiting for him to respond. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "I'm overtired." He backed away, forcing a laugh that sounded nothing like him. But when he turned toward the light switch, the whisper came again. Louder. Sharper. His name. Ethan. The voice was so close, he felt it rather than heard it. His hand froze midair. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his feet wouldn't move. He glanced back at the wall. Nothing. Just the same dull orange paint and a small crack running down the middle. He swallowed, took one cautious step forward, and placed his palm flat against the surface. The air was icy there, wrong somehow. Beneath his fingertips, the wall almost pulsed. Then it stopped. The clock ticked again. 2:14 a.m. The city outside was silent, asleep, unaware. Ethan exhaled, finally stepping back toward his bed. Maybe it was a dream, he thought. Maybe he'd wake up tomorrow and laugh about it. He turned off the lamp and lay back down, staring at the shadowed wall. The silence felt heavier now, filled with expectation. His eyelids grew heavy, until, just before sleep took him, the whisper returned, so faint it could have been a memory. "Don't forget me." Ethan's eyes shot open. The clock blinked 2:17. And this time, when he listened closely, he realized the whisper wasn't coming from inside the wall. It was coming from behind it. Morning came slow and colorless. Ethan sat at the edge of his bed, eyes locked on the same patch of wall where the whisper had come from. The sunlight creeping through the blinds only made it worse. Now he could see every imperfection in the paint, every uneven ridge of plaster beneath. It wasn't just old. It was different. The wall looked slightly swollen, like something had pressed outward from the inside. He ran his fingers over it. The texture was coarse, brittle. A faint line, no thicker than a thread, ran down from the top corner to the baseboard. It hadn't been there yesterday. Ethan frowned. His building was ancient, sure, but this looked new. Like something trying to escape. He grabbed a butter knife from the small kitchen drawer and gently scraped the surface. A thin layer of white dust fell away, revealing darker material beneath, almost like concrete. He pressed harder. Another flake broke loose, exposing something underneath the paint that shimmered faintly, catching the light. Metal? Before he could look closer, a sharp knock echoed through his apartment. Ethan flinched, knife slipping from his hand. The sound came from the front door this time. He waited. Another knock. Then silence. He opened the door to find no one there. Only the quiet hallway and a single envelope lying on the floor. No name, no return address, Just his apartment number scribbled in faint pencil. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The handwriting was shaky, uneven. If you hear it again, don't answer. That was all. No signature. Ethan stared at it, heart hammering. Someone new. He spent the rest of the morning pacing, staring at the wall, listening. But there was nothing, no knocks, no whispers, just the distant hum of city life seeping through the thin walls. By noon, he almost convinced himself it was a bad dream. Almost. But then, as he reached for the light switch that evening, his fingers brushed the wall again. The crack felt wider and colder. He stepped back. The entire section of paint seemed to ripple slightly, as if breathing beneath a thin layer of skin. Okay, he muttered, grabbing his phone. Maintenance can deal with this. He dialed the building office. The line rang once, twice, then stopped. A click. Maintenance, said a man's voice. Too calm. Yeah, hi. I'm in 3B. There's something wrong with the wall. Don't touch it. Ethan froze. What? Don't touch the wall, Mr. Hale, the voice said, using his full name though he hadn't given it. Someone will be there shortly. The line went dead. He lowered the phone slowly, pulse racing. How did they know his name? And how could they know what he was calling about before he said it? The evening stretched into night. He sat in his chair, staring at the wall as the room dimmed. No one came. No one knocked. But just past midnight, he saw something new, the faint outline of a doorframe forming in the plaster, right where the crack began. And then came that voice again. Only this time, it didn't whisper. It laughed. Ethan backed away, eyes fixed on the wall as the crack spread like a living vein, reaching upward with a quiet hiss. By 2:17 a.m., the laughter had stopped. But the door behind the wall hadn't. It was waiting. The next morning, Ethan sat on his couch, the note still lying on the table. If you hear it again, don't answer. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he swore he could hear faint echoes through the wall. Sometimes laughter. Sometimes a whisper that sounded like his own name. He turned on the TV for noise, but static filled the screen instead of the morning news. Every channel, just static. Then, beneath the hiss, he heard it again. A voice. So faint. Like someone speaking through layers of water. Ethan, can you hear me? He froze. The voice came from the TV. He leaned forward, pulse pounding. Don't open it yet. And then the static vanished. The picture returned, a smiling anchor talking about the day's weather, as if nothing had happened. Ethan's skin crawled. He grabbed the remote and turned the TV off. Silence. But he could still hear the echo of the voice in his mind, distant but familiar. That's when he noticed his phone on the coffee table. The screen was lit. A new voice memo had appeared. He didn't remember recording anything. The file was labeled simply, 2:17 a.m. His chest tightened. That was the same time he'd heard the laughter last night. He pressed play. For a moment, there was only static. Then, a faint knock. 3 times. Then breathing. Slow, uneven. And then his own voice. I told you not to touch the wall. Ethan's stomach dropped. The voice on the recording wasn't just similar, it was exactly his. Same tone. Same rhythm. But there was something else underneath. A kind of distortion, like another voice overlapping his own. He stopped the playback, trembling. This couldn't be real. Maybe someone had hacked his phone. Or maybe he'd been sleep-talking. But as he stared at the timestamp again, he noticed something impossible. The file was created 2 hours before he had even gone to bed. He tried deleting it. The phone froze. The screen flickered. And then, without warning, the file started playing again on its own. This time, the voice was louder. Angrier. Why did you answer, Ethan? He dropped the phone. The voice continued, muffled from the floor. You shouldn't have listened. You opened it, didn't you? His gaze shot toward the wall. The crack had widened overnight, now clearly outlining a door. Beneath the peeling paint, something metallic glinted faintly, catching the dim light from the window. He could almost feel a pulse beneath the surface, a rhythm syncing with his own heartbeat. Ethan stepped back, breathing fast. Who are you? He shouted at the wall. Silence. Then, from the phone still lying face down, The voice whispered, "You already know." The room temperature dropped. His breath fogged the air. Somewhere deep within the wall, something shifted, a grinding sound, like stone against metal. And then it stopped. Ethan stared, frozen. Every instinct told him to leave, to pack up and walk away. But part of him couldn't. Something about that voice, his voice, felt like it was begging him not to run. He slowly bent down, picked up the phone, and saw a new file appear automatically, "Play me at midnight." No sender. No app notification. Just those 4 words. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. Inside, Ethan stood alone, and yet not entirely. Because from behind the wall, the laughter had returned. So, patient. Closer. Ethan didn't sleep that night. The words on his phone, "Play me at midnight," replayed in his head like a curse. Every tick of the clock dragged heavier than the last. When the minute hand neared 12, he sat frozen on the couch, phone in hand, watching the wall as if it might breathe. At exactly 12 a.m., the phone screen flickered to life by itself. The file began to play. This time, there was no static. Just a voice, calm, familiar, too familiar. "You're not alone in that building, Ethan," it said softly. "Check apartment 3B. He's been watching the wall too." Ethan's hand trembled. Apartment 3B. That was his next-door neighbor, Mr. Calder, a quiet man in his 60s who rarely left his unit except to water the dying plants in the hallway. Ethan had spoken to him maybe twice. He hesitated. But curiosity, that dangerous force that had pulled him this far, won again. The hallway outside was dim, the lights buzzing faintly overhead. The air smelled of old paint and damp carpet. Ethan knocked once. No answer. He knocked again, louder. From inside, faint footsteps. Then silence. "Mr. Calder?" Ethan called, trying to sound calm. "It's Ethan, from next door. I need to ask you something." A lock turned. The door creaked open just an inch. One weary eye peered through the gap. "You've heard it too," Calder whispered. It wasn't a question. Ethan froze. The voice. Calder nodded once, opening the door wider. "Come in. But close it behind you. The walls listen." The apartment was darker than Ethan's, cluttered with books, boxes, and photographs turned face down. A single lamp illuminated a small desk covered in cassette tapes and old audio equipment. Calder gestured to a chair. "It started 20 years ago," he said quietly. "Same wall. Same sounds. But back then it was another tenant. A woman named Lila." Ethan frowned. "Lila." Calder slid open a drawer and pulled out a faded photo. A woman with sharp eyes and dark hair stood in front of the same hallway Ethan now lived in. "She lived where you do," Calder said. "Said she heard someone trapped behind the wall. Nobody believed her, until she disappeared." Ethan's stomach turned cold. Disappeared? Gone without a trace. The police sealed the room. Said it was unsafe. But they never found her. Ethan glanced around the apartment again. The stacks of recordings, the tape labels marked with dates. "You've been recording it?" Calder nodded grimly. "Every sound, every whisper. Listen." He pressed play on one of the tapes. A faint knocking filled the room, 3 slow knocks, then a pause. And then, unmistakably, Ethan's own voice spoke from the tape. "Let me out." Ethan stumbled back, his pulse racing. That's me." Calder's eyes darkened. "It was her voice once. Then mine. Now it's yours." The air in the apartment thickened, heavy and electric. From somewhere deep within the walls, they both heard it again. That same low rumble, that same pulse. Calder turned off the tape. "It's feeding on something," he said. "Regret, guilt, maybe time itself. Whatever it is, it knows us." Ethan's phone buzzed violently in his pocket. He pulled it out. A new message flashed across the screen. "He's lying. Don't trust him." Ethan looked up. Calder was staring at him, expression unreadable. "Who's lying?" Ethan whispered. Calder smiled faintly. "I was hoping you'd tell me." And then, the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room whole. The sudden loss of light wasn't just a blackout. It felt deliberate, like the building itself had blinked. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He could hear Mr. Calder moving somewhere in the dark, his breath shallow and uneven. "Stay still," Calder whispered. "It reacts to movement." Ethan froze. The air thickened, a strange, humming vibration beneath the floorboards. Then, faintly, from behind the shared wall of their apartments, came a sound like someone dragging fingertips across plaster. Slow. Scraping. Alive. "Turn on a light," Ethan muttered. Calder struck a match. The flame flickered weakly, revealing his pale face and trembling hands. In the glow, Ethan noticed something on the far wall, a square outline, faint but visible beneath peeling wallpaper. "What's that?" Calder followed his gaze. His expression changed, dread mixed with resignation. "That," he whispered, "wasn't here before you moved in." Ethan stepped closer, brushing the wall with his fingers. The texture was wrong, softer, like thin drywall hastily patched. Without thinking, he pressed harder. The wallpaper tore slightly, revealing a hidden seam. Calder shook his head. "Don't." But Ethan was already peeling it back. Beneath the paper was a wooden frame. A door. A door that shouldn't have existed. His breath caught. "How long have you lived here, Calder?" 23 years, the old man said, voice shaking. "And I've seen this building change. But that wall, it's been sealed for decades." The humming grew louder, vibrating through the air like a trapped engine. Ethan grabbed a flashlight from a nearby drawer and aimed it at the doorframe. The wood looked ancient, yet freshly disturbed, dustless, the handle polished as if touched recently. He turned to Calder. "What's behind it?" Calder's eyes darted to the ceiling, to the trembling shadows. "I don't know. I only know what Lila wrote before she vanished." He pulled an old note from his pocket, paper yellowed with time. Scrawled handwriting covered it in frantic loops. "It calls for those who've lost something. Don't answer twice." Ethan frowned. "Lost something?" The air temperature dropped. His breath fogged. He could almost hear a faint whisper now from the other side of the door, a voice calling his name. "Ethan." He stumbled back. "You heard that?" Calder's match burned down to his fingers. He hissed, dropping it. The room plunged into black again. In the moment of darkness, something moved, a faint outline against the hidden door, as if a hand had pressed from the other side. Ethan's fear twisted into obsession. "I have to know," he muttered. "I have to see what's inside." Calder grabbed his arm. "If you open it, you can't close it again." But Ethan was already pulling at the frame. The wood creaked, once, twice, then gave way. A cold draft poured out, thick with dust and decay. The flashlight beam pierced the opening, revealing what lay beyond. A small room. Perfectly square. Wallpaper identical to his own. A single chair sat in the center, facing a wall of cracked mirrors. And in the chair sat Ethan. Not a reflection. Not an illusion. The same face. The same clothes. But pale, expressionless. Calder whispered behind him, voice trembling, "Now you understand why the others never came back." Ethan stepped closer, unable to breathe. The other him lifted his head, eyes empty, mouth forming silent words. Then, in a voice that echoed both inside and outside Ethan's skull, it spoke. "You shouldn't have opened it." And the door slammed shut behind him. The slam of the door echoed like thunder. Ethan spun around, pounding his fists against the wood, but it wouldn't move. The air was thick, stale, heavy with something ancient. When he turned back, the other him, the one sitting in the chair, was gone. Only the mirrors remained. Each one reflected him differently, younger in some, older in others. Some showed him with blood on his hands, others with tears streaming down his face. It wasn't his reflection anymore. It was his life, split apart. He stepped closer, voice trembling. "What is this?" From somewhere unseen, a whisper, "A place made from what you tried to forget." Ethan's flashlight flickered. The walls pulsed faintly as if alive. Images started to appear inside the mirrors, flashes of his childhood home, his mother crying, a boy hiding beneath a staircase. His breath quickened. He knew that house. He knew that boy. Then came the sound, a phone ringing. Not in the room. In his head. He turned toward the nearest mirror. Inside it, a younger version of himself stood in a small kitchen, holding an old rotary phone. The younger Ethan spoke words that sent chills through his spine. "I didn't mean to leave him there." Ethan staggered back, clutching his head. No, that never happened. But the mirrors didn't stop. The next showed a different scene, two brothers standing on a frozen lake, laughter echoing through the cold. Then the ice cracked. Screams. A hand reaching out. And only one boy climbing back to shore. Ethan's stomach twisted. "Stop," he shouted. The mirrors obeyed, all except one. In its reflection, he saw Mr. Calder standing on the other side of the door, pacing, talking to someone unseen. Ethan pressed his hand to the glass. "Calder, I'm here." But Calder couldn't hear him. Instead, Ethan watched as Calder turned to someone just out of frame, and the silhouette that answered looked exactly like Ethan. A sick realization dawned. The thing sitting in the chair wasn't gone. It had crossed over. The whisper returned, closer now. "You traded places, Ethan. Just like before." His pulse thundered. "Before? What do you mean, before?" The mirrors rippled again. The frozen lake appeared once more, but this time he saw it clearly. The boy who had fallen through the ice was not a stranger. It was his brother. The one he'd never spoken about. The one whose name he'd buried with the guilt. He dropped to his knees. "No. I tried to save him." The voice in the dark answered, calm and cruel. "You ran. You always run. From the lake. From the truth. From yourself." Tears burned his eyes. "Please. Just let me fix it." The reflection nearest to him changed again. Now, it showed his current apartment, the living room, the cracked wall, his phone on the table. It buzzed once, screen lighting up. A call. From unknown number. The voice whispered again, softer this time. "You can fix it, Ethan. But only if you answer." He stared into the mirror, trembling. "What happens if I do?" Silence. Then, faintly, from the phone's speaker in the reflection. "You already did." The mirrors flickered violently. The room shook. And before Ethan could move, one of the reflections stepped out of the glass. His brother's face twisted in sorrow and accusation. Ethan's scream was swallowed by the darkness. Ethan stumbled backward as the figure emerged fully from the mirror. A boy no older than 10, soaked, shivering, and dripping lake water onto the dusty floor. His skin was pale, eyes hollow but alive with something Ethan couldn't name, sorrow or blame, maybe both. "Daniel?" The name escaped Ethan's lips like a wound reopening. His brother looked exactly as he had the day he vanished beneath the ice. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The air between them was thick with every year Ethan had tried to forget. Then Daniel spoke, his voice quiet, echoing as though from underwater. "You promised you wouldn't leave me." Ethan's knees buckled. "I tried to save you. The ice broke, I couldn't." Daniel tilted his head, studying him through glassy eyes. "You didn't try hard enough." The walls groaned around them. The mirrors began to glow faintly, their surfaces rippling with orange light. Flames flickered within them, not cold blue reflections, but fire, spreading across each panel, devouring the images of Ethan's past. He turned in panic. "What's happening?" Daniel's voice deepened, layered with something older. "The room remembers. It burns away the lies." Ethan spun toward the nearest mirror. Inside it he saw the lake again, but now it wasn't frozen. It was on fire, water churning with embers. He saw himself standing at the edge, younger, terrified, and running. Running away while Daniel screamed for help. "No," Ethan whispered, shaking his head violently. "That's not how it happened. I went for help." The fire inside the mirrors flared higher, as if the room itself rejected the lie. Smoke began to seep from the cracks in the glass, filling the air with a metallic scent. Daniel stepped closer, eyes reflecting the firelight. "You didn't go for help. You just watched." Ethan fell to his knees, gasping. The truth pressed down on him, suffocating. Memories he'd buried clawed their way back. The sound of cracking ice, the desperate reach of a small hand, the choice to run. "I was a kid," he whispered. "I was scared." The boy's expression softened, For just a moment. So was I. The mirrors trembled violently. Flames licked the edges of the room now, crawling up the walls. Through the flicker, Ethan saw flashes. His mother crying at the kitchen table, police at the door, the empty space where Daniel's room used to be. The hidden room wasn't just a secret space. It was a manifestation, a memory made real. His guilt had carved it into the house like a scar. Ethan stood, coughing as smoke thickened. If this is punishment, then take me instead. Let him go. Daniel's figure began to fade, his form shimmering like heat. It's not me who keeps you here, Ethan. It's you. The walls cracked. The mirrors shattered, one by one, sending shards of flame and glass raining to the ground. The room shook as if collapsing in on itself. Ethan grabbed the chair to steady himself. And then he saw it, written across the backrest in burned letters, "Forgive yourself." The flames surged, swallowing everything in orange light. Ethan closed his eyes, whispering, "I'm sorry." When he opened them again, the room was gone. He was standing in his apartment, the wall sealed, untouched, as though none of it had happened. Except for one thing. On the floor lay a single charred photograph of two boys smiling by a frozen lake. The edges still warm. His phone buzzed. A new message appeared. "You did it this time. Don't answer if it calls again." Ethan stared at the wall, trembling. And faintly, beneath the plaster, came 3 slow knocks. The last knock faded into silence, leaving Ethan standing motionless, phone in hand, heart pounding against the walls of his ribs. The message on the screen burned into his mind. Don't answer if it calls again. But how could he not? The sound, slow, deliberate, seemed to pulse through the plaster, through his bones. He stepped closer to the wall, fingers trembling as they brushed the cold surface. It was smooth now, no cracks, no seams, yet he could feel something breathing beneath it. A faint warmth. A heartbeat. The memory of fire flashed before his eyes. The room, the mirrors, Daniel's voice echoing through smoke. He whispered into the silence, "If you're still here, show me." The lights flickered once. Then again. Ethan's tools were still scattered from earlier nights. The chisel, the hammer, the flashlight. His breath trembled as he picked them up. One strike. Then another. The wall groaned under the force. Dust filled the air. The third hit landed, and a hollow echo responded. Ethan froze. There was a space behind the wall. With each strike, the sound grew deeper, older, like something ancient waking. The final piece of drywall cracked and fell away, revealing darkness beyond. A void. He shone his flashlight through the opening. There was the room. Exactly as before, same wooden chair, same damp floor, same air thick with forgotten time. Except this time, it wasn't burning. It was waiting. Ethan crawled through the gap, his flashlight beam trembling across the walls. The mirrors were gone, replaced by old wallpaper, peeling, patterned with faint outlines of hands pressed against it. At the center, where the chair once stood, lay something new. A small wooden box, blackened at the edges, tied shut with a strip of leather. Ethan knelt. His pulse quickened as he untied the strap and lifted the lid. Inside, a single cassette tape. No label, just his name carved into the plastic. Ethan. His hand shook. He pulled out his old cassette player, the same one he'd used days ago when the voice first appeared. He hesitated. Don't answer if it calls again. He pressed play. Static filled the air, faint but rhythmic, like breathing. Then, a voice. Familiar. You opened it again. His flashlight dimmed. The voice wasn't Daniel's this time. It was older, rougher, his own. You think you found the truth, it said. But the truth was never in the room. It's what the room took from you. Ethan's mouth went dry. What do you mean? You built these walls to forget, the voice continued, distorted by static. And every time you remember, it opens again. The air grew heavier. The sound on the tape warped, echoing. Opens again, opens again. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered out. Darkness swallowed everything. Ethan's breath quickened. He turned toward the faint sound, that slow, steady knocking. Only now it wasn't coming from behind him. It was inside the room. The floorboards shifted. A shadow moved across the far wall, tall, human, but wrong. Ethan took a step back, heart racing. Who's there? The shadow stopped moving. Then, in a low, almost broken whisper, it spoke. Do you remember what's under the floor? Ethan's blood turned cold. He looked down and saw the wood beginning to splinter. Something beneath it was pushing upward. The knocking grew faster, louder, desperate. Ethan stumbled toward the opening in the wall, but it was gone. Bricked over. He turned, flashlight barely flickering to life. The shadow was gone. In its place, a small handprint burned into the floor. The cassette still played in the darkness, repeating one final phrase, over and over. You can't bury what remembers you. The floor cracked open, and everything went silent.